Welcome to Bonded Voices. The topic for now is going to be AI for the common man. I'm Loren.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Greg.
So I think I'll start this one off because, you know...
It's your area of fascination.
Yeah, it's my pet project here. And it's in the news all the time. We hear about AI this, AI that. I think we've all been exposed to AI through sci-fi, and it's always led to some dystopian world where AI takes over the world. You know, we have HAL from 2001, we have Skynet from the Terminator series, but I really think that AI is, you know, here for, it can help a lot of people, and I actually try to embrace it and learn as much about it as I can and use it where I can. There's a lot of different areas that you can use it, and a lot of different people have used it and or have created models and use cases for it where it's been beneficial.
And you know, Loren, what's interesting is a few years ago, our company had a guy from Microsoft's AI division come and talk as our keynote. And at the time, there was like 4 areas. Now, along with machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, there's another 20.
It's expanding.
Right. It exponentially.
Yes.
Probably AI is expanding it, really, right? But
well, there's different tools, and then there's usages of those tools. So like Chat GPT, there's a huge group of people that write software that uses the API version of that.
But wait. This is AI for the common man, right? Like, if you went to 10 people in the street to answer Chat GPT, they'd be like, chat to who? About what?
Right.
And so let's back it up a little, right? Everyone's heard the term AI. Where's it being used in a place that affects that guy on the street that's never heard of it?
That will be hard for the person that has not heard of it, because we're on the early adopter area, right? It's what they like to term, we're at the jagged frontier. Some things work, some things don't. The technology goes forward, it comes backwards. Well,
I think if we're in that technology adoption life cycle, right, which is, we're in the innovator stage still.
Right.
We haven't crossed that chasm where you actually get to the early adopters and early majority. It's still proven itself, but I think, you know, to the loaded question about where is the common man using it, Tesla vehicles, Waymo, you know, you've got AI in use in those. And Google just introduced for their new web browser an AI component. To me, it just looks like the number one paid for result in a box at the top, but they claim results, it's an AI thing.
I think Microsoft uses it in Bing now, their search engine they use.
I think they were ahead of them, actually. Microsoft were ahead of Google on it. But you mentioned Chat GPT. Give our listeners a quick overview of what Chat GPT is and an easy use of it that they could do to have some fun.
So from a high level, Chat GPT is a natural language query engine that you can use to ask in your regular voice, ask a question.
Give us an example.
So here's an example. So let's say I wanted to learn about doing podcasts. So I would go into Chat GPT, give me the top 10 bullet points of what to do in a podcast. And
so Chat GPT is a website?
It is. So there's a web interface for it. So most people would go to the OpenAI Chat GPT, right? That's how they'd get to it. And you would go there, you would type in your question, and it will give you a response, not as, you know, traditional search engines do. It would give you a written synopsis of what you want. So you could use it to learn a skill. So you could say, I want to learn how to do podcasts. Create a syllabus for me with 10 sections, and each section has 5 bullet points, and it would go through and do that. And then you could say, okay, on section 2, expand on it because I really don't understand that concept, and give me examples. And it would go through and write in natural language like it was a white paper you're reading.
Yeah.
So then it's basically it's like a ghostwriter.
Yes.
So you're asking this system, Chat GPT, to put together information. Write me a 10-point story on how to put together a podcast. And then as you're going through that process, you can ask for modifications, you can, but it's basically like filling the page with paragraphs, bullet points, to your point, almost like a report.
So I've used it before, even in like asking for what are the most popular hashtags for podcasts, and it'll give you the most popular hashtags for podcasts.
You could use it to find out a good name for a podcast.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
So where is Chat GPT going to get this information?
So they've developed
and I understand we're using Chat GPT much like Kleenex is a facial tissue.
We're
using
it's the most popular.
Weren't they scraping from Reddit or something?
Yes, it was Reddit, but most with the newer models, it's more recent data. But like I believe it was Chat GPT 3 was 2 years old, so it would parse the data, and then there was 1 billion data points that you could query against with natural language. So they call these large language models LLMs. Meta calls theirs Llama because it's LLM.
So I've heard a lot of kids are using this for homework assignments, and it's actually, I've heard it's so good that the teachers at first were catching on, and then someone went back to Chat GPT and said, "Hey, Chat GPT, write this in a way where my teacher's not going to realize I've plagiarized this."
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Brilliant.
Brilliant, exactly.
Well, so you could change it into the style. So I believe it was probably 6 months ago, Joe Rogan on his podcast was talking about they used ChatGPT to create jokes in his style and format, and then they used another AI engine that copied his voice, so it sounded like he was delivering these jokes, but it wasn't him at all. So that's deep into the AI world where it's not the average person using it. The average person is going to use it to create, be an assistant. I need someone to teach me how to, write an essay on the atomic bomb, whatever it is.
So what are you mentioned Reddit, and so at this point in time, the most advanced AI engine or artificial intelligence engine, where is it searching? Where is it gathering these data points to put together the 10 things you need to know about doing a podcast?
It consumed all the data that was in Reddit across all.
So basically from people and other libraries of information to start with.
Okay, so if I wrote a letter and I published my own letter 2 years ago, and it was on Reddit on 3 things you need to know about creating your own podcast, then it could be querying my report that I put together.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, and let's not get stuck on ChatGPT, because when people talk AI is the category that covers so many different things, like self-driving car, or what's those little things that clean your house, the little round things, Roombas. Yeah, there's AI working for you. Or even like, you even think about what people think AI is. Sometimes it isn't what now it's become, because of the different categories. Like anything that's considered robotics is now considered artificial intelligence. Right. Even though the robot's not getting any smarter, it's just like ants, just redoing the same journey over and over and over.
So self-learning?
I
don't know if AI's there yet, where they're gaining that, and they claim it is in.
They are using. So there's a theory that. So they try not to use AI generated content for their learning, right? They need real human input. That's what they're trying to do, because what they were talking about at one point was that it would lead to erroneous results. So AI would do its own, or these large models would start generating data to fill in the voids. So, but it has people. It requires people to look at it. So, I was listening to a podcast, a different podcast today, where they were talking about they're cataloging smells, and they're using AI to use that, and it's using these catalog smells so that an AI engine could then cook a meal and know if the meal was prepared.
How in the world does the AI engine know the smells?
So when we first talked, Chat GPT is only text-based, but AI is, just like Ian was saying, is across many different industries. So someone cataloged, their model is nothing but, their data points is chemical makeup of smell.
See, and that's when you get into things like machine learning, neurosciences and things like that help with those different things. There's an interesting Ad Age report out, Greg, that talks about how the marketeers behind all the AI stuff are way more excited by it than the general public is. And it's a big enough disconnect for people to be concerned. But back to that whole idea of at what point do we cross the chasm? If you look back at the internet, go back to 1998, websites, they're sort of cool, but really, is it really ever going to be anything?
Right. Nobody's going to spend any time on the internet.
Right, and then you get the crash of 1999, 2000, right? And everyone's like, yep, see, that was all over. And then it comes back, and this article covers the same thing with NFTs, because NFTs were all the rage. May end up finding it was all about money laundering, but the idea, the conceptual side of NFTs may come back, but for AI, and we'll go into NFTs on a different podcast, but for AI, industry's working really hard on it.
Right.
Do the general public, does the common man really care at this point? And do they look at that Roomba as AI, or they're like, it's just a freaking vacuum that just goes around in circles all day long?
I think everyone should be aware of it, and in the reason why is that it's going to be part of industry. Whatever menial tasks that you're doing at your job will eventually be made into some machine learning script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Harvard just released a big study, what was it, last week, September 2023. They released a study where it said that they broke up roughly 800 people into two cohorts. One was where it was knowledge workers doing their regular job, and then they had the other cohort was the knowledge workers with an AI assistant. The AI assistants got their job done 12% faster with 40% greater accuracy. So
only 40%?
Yeah. Well, AI is only good as the data that it's used as its source.
Well, one thing, Greg, that was really interesting was that WebMD used AI to make what are they called? Diagnosis on people with illnesses. AI straight up against doctors, they match them exactly 90-something% correct, 94% correct. But then you added AI assisted with a doctor, and that number went up even higher. But AI alone, like if you, and I think you can even do it. If you go into WebMD and just type in your symptoms, you'll get a 94% chance of getting the correct diagnosis on what you might be suffering from. So that's where gathering those huge data pools in first, and then you do, it's predictive analytics, right, or predictive whatever you call it. But that's where people are starting to see those sort of things work for them.
So the common man, they're going to see it in their work. Will the gardeners see it in their work? Probably not until they make a lawn version of the Roomba. But they're on the way. They're doing something.
Oh, I've seen that on TV.
But anyone that works, so they say that anyone that's got a white collar job should be at least aware of what tasks that they're doing now that are that could be scripted out as machine learning.
Yeah. See, for me, one of the most interesting things is using data to make predictions or prognosis going forward so you don't end up doing the same thing over and over again. And because the definition of insanity,
Sure.
expecting that different output without different inputs. But when you gather in, especially in big industry, when you're gathering data lakes worth of information, like I came out of a different few industries. One, the industry I was in was the legal e-discovery industry, and they took that idea of boxes and boxes of everyone had to read to find information, to having computers like doing OCR, character recognition, optical character recognition, and then reading through all of that copy to find specific keywords that would be part of the discovery. And it took a job, like if you go back to the savings and loan scandal here in Phoenix, back in the 80s, they had trucks and trucks and trucks full of boxes that went into huge warehouses with desks where people would sit at that desk and read through them all day until they clocked off. Now it's you digitize it all goes into a machine, and the machine actually scans it. But even better now, it scans it all in place. You don't even have to retrieve it. It's just collected in place. So that's where AI is playing a very beneficial role in that. Don't want to go down a rabbit hole of this, but like
And here
if you can find it, you can cover it up as well.
So, okay. So we talked earlier about Reddit was one of the original sources. So now let's use your example of the savings and loan scandal. So all of this data has been stored somewhere.
Yep.
Right?
You need data as a starting point.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So is that data safe? Or can I go into Chat GPT and start putting together a letter on the fall of the savings and loan?
If that data was in their source, it's open then, if people have access to it.
Okay, so question number 2. I sat in a meeting very recently, and there was conversation about how some large industries are starting to use AI more regularly. But then the topic was brought up on what is the slant of the search, or what is the political slant of the information that's being pulled in an effort to remain completely neutral. This was specific to underwriting rules within the mortgage industry that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have started to implement AI.
So this goes back to, and I hate to keep saying Chat GPT, but since it was based on Reddit, what happens to be a little bit left of center, so that the results from Chat GPT were left of center. So it's only going to be as good as the source for its data.
Sure. But is that a valid data point? Because our listeners sitting here having a cup of coffee with us, they've seen the headlines that might have said there's a political slant to this, or there's fear in this. And I think part of the topic tonight that we're working on is AI for the common man, but also comfort in understanding the concept. So let's get over the fear of the unknown, which is why I think we're talking about this right
So
now.
Greg, you brought up something really interesting. Think about this. The Google algorithm and the algorithm of the search engines is controllable, right? So you could put an input in saying, is blah, blah, blah a bad person? Based on the algorithm and the bent of the people programming the algorithm, or the way it's been asked to program it, it can deliver you a result that you don't want to hear, that may convince you of something that's false.
And even so, again, going back to the Chat GPT, they're asking about the last election cycle. They were going, tell me about this candidate and tell me about this candidate, and it was very one-sided.
So a few more minutes left in this, right? But there's a great news story at the moment that we had an F-35 jet. The pilot was ejected midair, right?
Yep.
And the jet went and crashed. All of a sudden, the government went totally quiet on it. And a theory came out today that said, based on the reports that came in, at the same time as the Chinese were having ships off Taiwan, this pilot was flying along and didn't eject. He got ejected because he had also no control over his flight panel. And they think that the F-35, because it has so much technology in it, was AI hacked.
Terrifying.
There's a whole other subject we can talk, and it's called post-quantum, and it talks about nothing's safe and how everything is hackable once you get to that point of post-quantum computing.
Yeah. Well, that's the scary thing for the common man with electric cars is you're behind on your payments, you're having a tough time, they turn your car off or they recall it, as in it drives itself back to the pound. They're scary moments.
Yeah.
That's a scary place to be, that someone else can ultimately have control through AI over your world and your life and the things you were. And there's even been talk about, hopefully it'll never happen, like some kind of trigger lock on guns that could be controlled. They're all things that we absolutely don't want to let the government have the time in as well.
So last little point on that, I recall one of our local utilities was talking with one of the neighbors, and they were put on some special power plan as long as this ultimately remote controlled thermostat was installed.
Yes.
So that the utility could adjust the inside temperature of the home at their will based on electrical demand.
I know.
Yeah, that happened was it in Texas? They had a lot of that happening.
And California as well. And I think they started introducing it in Arizona as well.
So we kind of went down a path there at the end of things to be fearful of. And I think the way that what I wanted to gather out of us sitting here and sharing this cup of coffee was getting an understanding of what is AI, how does it work, and being more comfortable with that information. And then go down the path, learn some more.
See, I'd say from the takeaway, Greg, in these quick 20 minutes, it's so deep. There's so much to learn.
Right.
And for the common man, I think it's something that if you want to get in it, take baby steps. Maybe Chat GPT is the best place to start because it's something that's very relational to them. And then beyond that, just go along for the ride, but understand it, because I think it can have negative ramifications.
Right. So the takeaway for the common man I would say pick one of the main ones. I happen to use Chat GPT. Use it a little bit. Go out there, play with it. See what it can do for you. See what skill you can learn. Expand your own horizon.
Challenge it.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So you see if you can use it to help you learn something. I've seen people use it to teach themselves Spanish or teach them a new programming language, whatever it is. You want to learn how to be a chef. I'm sure you could find it.
Yeah.
Right there.
I think that's great information to wrap on, Loren. I think it's get over the fear of the unknown, embrace it, and see how you can grow from it.
Take that first step. So until next time, see you again on Bonded Voices.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.